This month, our combat mission in Afghanistan will be over. Our war in Afghanistan is coming to a responsible end. Of course, the end of our combat mission in Afghanistan doesn't mean the end of challenges to our security. We'll continue to work with Afghans to make sure their country is stable and secure and is never again used to launch attacks against America.
America has been fed this line so many times. Various presidents, guarantees of an involvement in war somewhere around the world being over, assurances we're never going to do it again. In this case, it's Afghanistan. We'll get to that and so much more. Let's welcome back former veteran CIA analyst Lisa Ruth to the conversation. Always a pleasure to have you on the show.
Good to be here.
Let us see if I have in my hot little hand right here. Attacks rise in Afghan capital as Taliban shifts tactics. Tactics shifted basically because the Americans are leaving, and did we not know that this was inevitable?
Absolutely. And the fuel on the fire, of course, is the government in Afghanistan. They still don't have a cabinet. They still don't have security in place. There's disarray. Taliban is very patient, and we saw this. Everybody seems to have seen this coming, except, I guess, the administration. As soon as everybody pulls out, there's that vacuum, and Taliban says, thank you very much.
Oh, no, wait a minute. I'm going to play, it seems to be Monday's my devil's advocate day here, because let's just say that the president and his advisors have a plan. They know what they're doing. This is a good thing. They know exactly where we're going with this. So, okay, Lisa, here's where we are right now. Here's where the president says we're going to be. Go ahead and fill in the gaps here. How are we going to get there with what we're doing right now?
Well,
Can we get there?
I think the linchpin of that is the assumption and the belief that the Afghan security forces can pick up the slack. And I think that's really where that gap is that you're talking about, the belief gap. Are we going to suspend disbelief for a minute and say that they can do it? Or are we going to step in there and go, we're just going to give them an opportunity? The problem is you also have a psychological element of this. And even if by staying behind, I think part of the reason the bilateral security agreement, the agreement to leave some troops there, was so critically important was to make a play to the Taliban to say, we're not leaving Afghanistan completely.
But they know better.
But that's the other side of it. And if you want to say, do they really know? Look at the last 2 weeks. Look at the number of attacks. Look at the severity of the attacks. The Taliban is picking up. The Taliban has increased attacks in Kabul, but also around the country. It's just, they're stepping in.
Look, let's get down to basics here for a minute, okay? And let's be real honest. Is this just, once again, the fact that we in America are treating the Taliban like children? We believe they're nothing more than 6-year-olds. We don't, okay, yeah, they'll go out and kill somebody, but hey, they're not that smart. What is it, Lisa? Why can't we get out of this rabbit hole?
I'm not even sure it's that. I think it's this.
It seems like it, though.
Oh, absolutely. I think the problem, though, is, it's like, if you know about it, then you have to do something about it, almost. If we admit and stand up and say the Taliban is a problem, that all this time we've been there, we have essentially put them dormant but have not killed them. So the fact that they've been sleeping and waiting and now are ready to come back, if we admit that, then we have to do something, and we're not prepared to do something right now.
Is it fair to say, too, and I'm going to spin a little bit to Israel here, because certainly there's a lot of discussion right now that this administration is not behind the Israelis. They're even considering the possibility of sanctions, that this may have not only weakened Netanyahu in some ways, but did this also leave us looking weak overall? Because if you have the enemy saying, well, they're not going to help their allies, or am I extrapolating too much here?
Well, I think what we're seeing is the same pattern of behavior. I think what we're seeing is in Afghanistan, this incredibly high hopes going in. And, the previous president lost all faith in the United States and really kind of turned against us. Now, you can say, was he ever our friend? I don't know. But you look across the world, and Israel's made it very clear, at least Netanyahu has made it very clear, that the United States has not stood by him. And it will be very interesting to see in elections.
But are we feeding all this by not being completely behind Netanyahu, the settlements on the West Bank, things that are happening there? Are we then feeding the radicalism and making it even bigger and better because we're not helping an ally?
I think, yes. I think what the answer is by not stepping up and extending ourselves. We're willing to reach our hands out this far, but not all the way across the lines. I do think that we are creating the impression that we're not going to get fully involved, and that does create problems.
15 seconds. Do we have the ability to then go from here to here without putting ourselves at risk?
No. I don't think we do. I think, we have to take some risk, but the question is, what are those calculated risks and what are those rewards we're willing to do it for?
Which it would seem as if still nobody has thought of to this day because we're going around in circles. But at least we get some honest answers here. Okay, Lisa Ruth remains in the chair after the break. Let's focus on Secretary of State John Kerry. He's meeting overseas with the Russians, and then we'll also talk about what happened in Australia today with regard to ISIS there. Welcome back, everybody. Joined once again by former veteran CIA analyst Lisa Ruth right here on MidPoint. Let's go ahead and turn to Australia now and what happened here in the last several hours. Apparently, we're learning now that 3 people were killed, and that's including the gunman. We watch this. This guy is an Iranian refugee. He comes to the country. He wants an ISIS-related flag. Please stop me if I'm wrong here, but when this whole thing happened, I'm watching it by going, I'm seeing a lone wolf. I know that ISIS has told lone wolves to act, but I can't get it out of my head that we're looking at potential copycats here, and we shouldn't be knee-jerking to right away go to ISIS, despite the fact that this is terrorism at its finest.
It is absolutely terrorist, and the fact that you don't even have to, if I can get you to do something without telling you to do it, how great is that? And absolutely, the copycat threat is very real. The copycat threat is the biggest threat right now. And again, I don't believe, from what we know and what we've seen, it does not appear that ISIS directed him to do something. Now, although ISIS did tweet and supported him, luckily, but absolutely, you're dealing with a situation. ISIS has given all these very fringe elements something to coalesce around. And they now have a flag, literal, as well as figurative, but that they can rally around. And that's one of the things that ISIS has done that has made it a success without even really trying. Using those social media networks, getting that information out. They no longer have to direct operatives to go do something. People willingly come up with this great idea, someone who they can do it in the name of, and that's very dangerous.
Do we have to stop being naive here? Because this was a Lindt cafe, the chocolate manufacturer. That's their cafe in Sydney. Guy walks in, takes hostages. There's 3 people dead today. This could happen in any major city in America. It can happen in a minor town in America. And sometimes people are going to start asking, what are we doing to find these guys? What are we doing to ferret them out? Yet many times, our system stops us from doing certain things, investigating certain people. We still haven't yet found that middle ground, if you will, in order to find the bad guys and keep the civil libertarians happy.
Absolutely, and you're right. This is very real. This can happen anywhere because there are people who don't think the same way or respect society the way that we all do. It can be anywhere, small town, big town. The thing with this particular person, he was a danger. We know he was a danger. He had counts of sexual assault.
He had a murder charge against him about a year ago, I believe.
His wife, his ex-wife, with a knife attack. He wrote threatening letters. This is someone who should have been on the radar. So I agree. One of the scariest things is people who don't commit a crime, have never committed a crime, and all of a sudden commit a crime. This is someone who, it's unclear to me why he wasn't watched more carefully. As you said, a murder conviction, or not conviction, I apologize.
Murder charge.
Murder charge, and someone who was targeting soldiers. So I'm not sure how he was not being watched more carefully.
All right, let's spin a little bit to John Kerry here, a minute and a half or so that we have left here. He's meeting with Israel. He's meeting with the Russians. Well, we can spend about 20 seconds here maybe on the Russian things. He's going to talk. He's talking to Lavrov, the prime minister right now. Nothing's going to happen here. They're just going to, it's a stonewall again, right?
My guess is yes. Yeah, the meeting with the foreign minister is, again, we're going to have, everybody's going to say all these things. We're going to say, oh, I hear your point of view. The Israel thing is actually pretty interesting to me because of the UN vote about
the Palestinian state.
Right, and we have elections coming up in Israel in 92 days. But again, I don't think anything's going to happen. I don't think we have the ability to leverage much of anything anywhere anymore. And I don't think that anything is going to dramatically change with the UN vote forcing Palestinian peace or with John Kerry meeting with them.
Fair to say that Palestinian vote now is really going to spin the relationship between America and Israel right now to see what America does. That could turn everything on a dime.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, elections in Israel coming up in 92 days. This could really make a difference on how much influence or even what kind of ties the U.S. has with the next government there.
By the way, real quick, Dick Cheney in Meet the Press over the weekend when he was talking about the enhanced interrogation, he said, quote unquote, "I'd do it again in a minute." You think pretty much everybody who works for the CIA right now just was shaking their head going, he's right?
I think that within the CIA, there's still a lot of thought of this is just not fair, this is not right. People still don't know what's going on, but there is a belief that they did the right thing to protect America.
And that's why we are here, to make sure that we at least bring a little sanity to it. Lisa, always a pleasure. We'll talk to you again next week. Thanks so much.
Good to be here.
All right, politicos and their like drawing some hard lines on torture in the CIA report. The Sunday Slam and the Sunday Shows next after a short break.